Hello, Jane.
Hello, I got it to work. Sorry.
Oh, terrific. Thank you so much for taking the time to speak with us. Much appreciated.
Okay, now I'm sorry. Like I said, this meeting went long. So, what study would I like to share and is interesting about this study? So, do you want me to talk about generally about the ages and stages questionnaires or?
It's your call. Pretty open. A couple of folks have spoken about specific studies, and we've discussed studies. And then one individual spoke about kind of a line of research around early mathematics, and so it's pretty open. Where the students are very excited to hear from researchers about their work, and yeah, so your call.
Well, why don't I talk about a general line of work, but then about the ages and stages questionnaires. But there's several studies. Like I could actually send you a list of studies, and you can have them also read one of them.
Terrific.
Um,
Terrific.
Let me do that right this minute so that I don't forget.
Thank you. How is your day going? Are you in Eugene, I imagine?
I am in Eugene, and yes, I if I had the choice, I would have gotten here and been more prepared for the interview. So I apologize for that.
Oh, no. This is a casual conversation.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. So, do you want me to just start talking?
Yeah, we'd love to hear what about this work and what you think's interesting about it, and we can just discuss it briefly, and we can keep to kind of a short amount of time. Is good. And we're open though for how much time you want to spend.
Okay. Well, you can. Definitely have 15 minutes if you want to prompt me.
Great.
You can do that or whatever with questions and also with or with time. So.
Okay. Great.
Right. So my name's Jane Squires, and I'm a professor at the University of Oregon, and I started really on a life's work that was kind of unsuspecting for me when I arrived at the university.
No, you've got our interest perked.
Because when I came as a doctoral student, I really wanted to do kind of group research. I was really interested in, I'd been a teacher for a long time, and I was really interested in how we can be effective teachers for young children. But when I came to the University of Oregon, I was working with a woman named Diane Bricker, who was starting a project that was just really fascinating to me. And what it was doing is using parents as assessors of young children. So it was, the project had just, had been going for a couple of years. She had a grant to develop some really simple, easy questionnaires that parents could read, and they could answer questions, and then they could do developmental screening on their own children. And to me, that was fascinating. I mean, the fact that we could use, much less expensive parental help to be assessors, as well as, just with my experience as a teacher, I realized that oftentimes assessors know the child the worst. And
right. The validity of that model makes so much sense, that the parents know their children. That
right,
the
exactly.
simplicity of it is so beautiful and powerful too. That's great.
Well, but the thing that we have to do as professionals is figure out how to structure the questionnaire, how to ask the right questions, how to make sure that we can maximize parent accuracy.
Yes.
And so that question so intrigued me that I kind of started on this project, really devoted myself almost exclusively to this line of research, as well as some accompanying lines of research. And now, I don't know, over 25 years later, I'm kind of directing the project, as well as some different spin-offs. And I'm still working with Dr. Bricker, who's retired, but now it's really become a life's work. And I would caution any of you researchers there who are thinking about developing like any kind of assessment tool, because you can't just do it once and have it be done. That it really is something that you have to keep working on. You have to keep, every 10 or 15 years having new normative data.
Yes.
Psychometrics, fix things that don't work, and so that's why I say it's a life work.
And so this course that the students are taking is really an introduction to research, and they happen to be early intervention, early childhood majors or seeking licensure and master's degrees. So we're talking a lot about fundamentals around independent variables, dependent variables, predictors and outcomes, good research questions, experimental control, internal validity. This is a very different type of research that we're talking about. When you mentioned psychometrics, this is the science of making sure the test is valid for what you're saying it's going to be valid for. So there's a lot of connections with experimental research or even qualitative research in some ways from the standpoint of your research is about making that valid, right?
Right.
Yeah.
Right. Yeah. So it's not an experimental design. It actually, with the Institute of Education Sciences, it has its own topic.
Oh, goal 5, right? Measurement?
Yes.
Yes.
And that is, right, goal 5, which is measurement. So, because without really good measurement tools, you can't usually do your experimental designs because they're really the basis for looking at group differences, or, unless you're doing single subject, but most group designs you're going to be using valid and reliable tools, and those have to get developed somehow. So that's kind of the study of psychometrics, which...
And so you harness psychometrics to develop Ages and Stages collaboratively, but then there was also, it was so neat hearing this original inspiration, how the project started, in that there's a lot of this refinement of the usability of it and the right language to use in the questions. Very interesting, very, very powerful project. I read that book by Atul Gawande, The Checklist Manifesto. I love the thesis of that. It's very similar to the work you're talking about. And it's been so widely used. It must feel good to see it make such a difference.
It's amazing. It's the most widely used screening tool in the world, which is pretty staggering and also humbling because as a researcher, you can never really have something that's going to work perfectly for everybody. And it's not always going to work, and people are not always going to use it in the correct way. And so that sometimes...
Oh, sorry to interrupt you. How many languages have you translated it into this far?
A lot, 67 that the publisher we know about.
Yes, official, publisher.
Right, and some of them are just 1 or 2 intervals or something, but yeah.
Okay, sure. That's really amazing, the impact factor there. That's great. So what have been some of the challenges along the way or interesting findings recently?
I think one of the most amazing tools for us has been the internet for data collection. That's really revolutionized how we can collect data and the sample we can get, because we can get now very easily a national sample. We can try to stratify it according to the census population, which is what we try to do. And even though it's not totally randomized, at least it's much more distributed across the U.S. And we found that parents are really interested in their kids. They're happy to complete questionnaires. We've also done some item response theory modeling to look at the differences with online pencil and paper administrations. And there are some differences, but they're not in the same way. They're not like in the same direction. It's a very small percentage of items that function differently. So we feel pretty confident that we can get pretty similar results on the internet as well as with pencil and paper questionnaires for those parents that have access to it. Or for instance, there's a lot of doctors who want to have a kiosk in the office and have parents fill out the developmental questionnaire while they're waiting for a visit. So
is there an app?
No. There's actually, you can use it on an iPad though.
Yes,
so there's an electronic version.
The electronic version can be used.
It's pretty hard for an app because it's a little bit too complex.
Okay.
But we have an app that's almost ready that calculates the age and the questionnaire that you need to use and stuff.
Oh, great.
So,
great, some scoring tools and analysis
right.
tools. Great. That's wonderful. that's really interesting to hear about some of that backstory of Ages and Stages. And I know it'll be interesting to read some of those articles you sent, so thank you. And share with the students some discussion around that. We have a couple other questions. Do you have time for a couple quick questions?
I do. Let me just 1 second, okay? I'll be right back.
Sure thing.
Okay, sorry.
It's amazing the quality of resolution of the video and audio. I feel like, we could offer you a cup of coffee here or something. Or,
Well, good. That's good. It's that new version of Skype I had to download.
Yeah, exactly. So, Jane, what do you think is the most important thing for clinicians to understand about research?
That it's not this kind of exciting, shiny, I don't want to say life-changing, but that it's really almost a slog in the sense of it's the day-to-day, little tiny details, thinking things through, getting procedures.
Yes.
So it's all the little details that really make good research. And in the end, after several years or several amounts of time, you feel very excited and you get this, wow, I did this. But I think, it's not that way all the time, that you have to really have a lot of patience and be able to realize that, you're getting to an end goal, but it's the day-to-day things that you do that are the most important.
Okay, we interviewed Eric Sanders, a speech pathologist at Pacific University, a colleague of mine, and he said that when asked this question, research happens along a trajectory, and that any given studies just fits in a line of research, and that really fits with what you're saying. That research is this process, and it's not always easy, and it can be a slog. But that at certain points you get to new levels of insight or scientific discovery. But I think those two ideas combined are helpful to one another, because for clinicians, I know when I was more just a teacher, I'd read research and I'd go, oh, okay, so I'd want to generalize it too much, or I'd want to have it really give me too many answers. And I think that understanding that it's a process and that we're making new discoveries, and that it's messy, it can be messy at different times in different ways, helps round that out about what that research really says to us as teachers and people making decisions in the field. So thanks for sharing that. So here's one that I think you'll like. Where do you think educational research should be headed?
I guess it depends on the level of the child, and I really believe in authentic assessment, that we need to be accountable, that it's really important that if we're teaching children things, we have goals and objectives, and we want to make sure that we monitor those. I think ongoing evaluation is probably the most important thing we can do as educators.
To drive instruction.
I think that's probably a lot of the formal assessment, the high stakes assessment, is not the most beneficial. And don't ask me exactly how I do it, but I think if we can get these real authentic situations for children where we're making sure what they're learning is generalizing. If we want them to read, they should be reading. They should be discussing and learning comprehension. And again, we should be responsible for evaluating that, but it should be the process and not the test itself that's important.
That makes so much sense to me as a teacher who works with a diverse range of students, mostly students with complex disabilities, that I need to assess, because I need to know where my student's at to teach, and that's a fundamental principle. So what you're saying really resonates. Kind of exciting. We heard from David Chard at SMU, the dean of SMU, and when he was asked this question, he said that he thought there was a good amount of room to do some out-of-the-box thinking and innovation. And I think with what you're saying, what's exciting is that we have some new technologies and we have some new things to leverage that we couldn't do before. So the idea of a high-stakes test that you take at the end of the year, well, that has some purposes. There's some unique purposes for that. But how is that going to help me drive instruction? No, something more dynamic that you said, it's more authentic, meaning that it's like what we actually need to use makes a ton of sense. And exciting thinking about the future of harnessing things like, for reading, some of this automated assessment technology, or the power of video to try to make some of those more involved and time-consuming assessments around comprehension more feasible. Exciting times.
Good. So maybe one more minute?
Yes, we are done. So thank you, Jane. Really helpful.
Sure.
Enlightening. So thank you, and I'll send you the link to the other videos.
Great, that would be wonderful.
Okay.
Good luck with your class, and nice to meet you.
Nice to meet you. See you around.
Alrighty, so long.
Bye.